Good evening and welcome once again to this week's episode of It's My Turn Now, where we give you an opportunity to share what your thoughts are, what your feelings are about the topic of the week, or if you have something else that's on your mind that you feel strongly about that you would like to discuss. It's your turn now. So you get an opportunity to just let us know what your thoughts are, let us know how you're feeling. Pray that everyone's doing well on today and you have an excellent week. Uh, this month is Suicide Awareness Month. I just thought that we should take the opportunity to just discuss suicide because it is a very important topic. It affects so many people. Uh, no doubt, someone you know or someone related to someone you know has either contemplated suicide or has actually attempted suicide or even have been successful in taking their life. And so I think it's a serious subject. It's something that we don't like to discuss, but it's something that is very necessary. And too often I hear people say, "I did not know that the person who commits suicide um, were even contemplating. They didn't see the signs." So I'm hoping at the end of this program right here, we can talk about some of the signs and uh, let you how give you some ideas how you can become aware of recognize some of those signs. Some of those signs are subtle, but some signs are more or less obvious. And then there are times when there's no signs at all. So I want that. Thank you, Sister Shirley Walton. Say praise the Lord, everyone. Thank you for joining this episode. It's my turn now. Thank you for sharing. She shared. I'm asking you if you're watching this, please feel free to share this. I think that this is very important. I think that is needful. I think you may be able to help someone as a result of this watching this program. For a number of years, I actually worked as a suicide and crisis intervention rep. I dealt with on a weekly basis a number of individuals would call the centralized line and would talk to us and share with us. Many of them, I was fortunate enough, I never had anyone to commit suicide while I was online. Unfortunately, there were those other uh, persons I talked to a number who actually had individuals who commit suicide while they were on the line. So it's a serious situation, something that people are dealing with, and something that we should focus on and be aware of the fact that it is a problem. I think I'm going to start off with some of the statistics. I'm I kind of like facts and figures and things that people can uh, numbers and figures to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. 2000, approximately 29,350 people uh, committed suicide. 2001, 30,600. 2002, 31,655. And if you notice a trend, each year the numbers are going up. The numbers are actually going up each year. When we get to some latest statistics here that we have, actually are it's 2021. That's approximately 48,183. I'm going to repeat that again: 48,183 individuals. That means that is an astronomical amount of people who are taking their lives, and we need to be aware of those. We need to focus on that. We need to uh, monitor the people around us, especially people that you know that are going through something. There are people in your family that's going through things, and you never want to just take it lightly. When someone in your family is dealing with depression, anxiety, overwhelming amount of stress, don't just blow it off like it's no big thing. And oh, he's going to get over it, she's going to get over it, because we really don't know how much stress a person can handle. Everyone cannot handle the same amount of stress that you're able to handle. You might say, well, I can handle this. Well, you may be able to handle, but the other person, next person, may not have the ability to be able to handle it, and it may be so overwhelming to them that they feel in their mind that the best way to um, get over this right here is to just take my life. And there are a number of reasons, and hopefully by the end of the program, we'll talk about a number of the reasons why people commit suicide. Here are some statistics on the methods of suicide. Firearms, 54%, 54.6% of individuals who commit suicide use a firearm. 25.8% through suffocation. Um, 11.6 through poisoning, and 8% through other means. I don't know what those other means are. I don't even know suffocation, how, what specifically they mean by suffocation. But it is a fact that these are some of the things that are happening and cause ways people are committing suicide. A number of people are shooting. But I talked to someone just last week who were telling me that a number of individuals commit suicide through hanging. Now there are statistics of ways men kill themselves and ways women kill themselves. I remember one of the things: most women do not shoot themselves. Most women will take pills or something like that. But I did attend a funeral where a young lady actually committed suicide by taking a shotgun, putting it in her mouth, and pulling the trigger. So that's serious. Um, Talk about some of the common myths before we really get into it, because there are a lot of myths around suicide. And before I go any further, there's a number. If you know someone that's contemplating suicide, there's a reason to have a number, a worldwide number, like we have 911. That's universal. Have 988. You want to write that down, 988. If you know someone who is contemplating suicide, give them that number, or call that number yourself, 988. I just want to talk about some of myths that are surrounding suicide. One of the myths is talking about suicide increases the chances a person will act on it. So sometimes people are afraid to have an open dialogue with someone who you think is committing suicide or contemplating suicide. Oh, I better not talk about it, because if I talk about it, that's really going to make them want to commit suicide. No, you really need to talk about it. You need to discuss it. Sometimes people need someone to talk to. Many of individuals I talked to when I worked with the Suicide and Crisis Line, they called and they were reaching out for help. Were they serious? Yeah, they were serious. Sometimes we think because they don't respond that they're not serious, but they're serious. But by the same token, some want to reach out for help, so you call the line. Sometimes there may be someone that's reaching out to you. They may say, "Hey, I'm just tired. I'm just tired of life." We have to listen to those signs. We have to listen to what people are saying, and not and take those things serious. It says talking about suicide may reduce rather than increase suicide ideation. It improves mental health related outcomes and the likelihood that the person will seek treatment. Opening this conversation helps people find an alternative view of their existing circumstances. If someone is in crisis or depression, ask if he or she is thinking about suicide can help. So don't hesitate to start the conversation. Don't be afraid to ask that person, "Hey, have you thought about committing suicide?" Whenever someone talks to you and they tell you how gloom or how grim life appears, ask them, "You know what? Have you thought about committing suicide?" Don't be afraid to ask them, because they will share it with you. So Shirley says, "It's my turn now." Says, "Be aware of some of the signs. I have withdrawn, staying in their room, not being social. I just found out today with my insurance that I get a reward if I've been working with the community, helping with the food pantry, or playing cards with someone, because these are classified as a social event." That's awesome. So I guess they're saying these are things that you can get involved in. People need people. We need one another. We need support. We need to support one another. And there are intrinsic values that's very rewarding, mentally, emotionally, to help someone. Um, and I always say, if someone's watching this program right now and you're contemplating suicide, feel free. You can respond on here, or you can inbox me. Let me know. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be ashamed to discuss or talk about suicide. I remember a serious case I had with a young man. He was about he's about I think 12 or 13. And he said, you know what? He said, I'm a straight A student. You know, he had some type of job. I'm not sure, paper or whatever. And everything was so overwhelming to him. He said, it's more than what I can handle. And he said, I don't want to disappoint my parents and tell them that I can't handle everything. I said, but don't you think they would be more disappointed if you were to take your life? See, when a person is contemplating suicide, the problem is the enemy does not give them all the facts. The enemy comes to kill and destroy, steal and destroy. We know that. And so he doesn't want you to feel that you can go beyond your circumstances. And so what I share with him, I said, you know, I think they'll be more disappointed if you were to take your life. I said, I'm sure they would rather you share with them, you know, what you're dealing with than you just, you know, commit suicide and take your life. And they, yeah, man, so, you know, I never thought about that. See, when you're or at the end of your rope, you're not thinking positive. You're not thinking all the facts out. And so most people aren't thinking clearly. So they need someone with a level head. They need someone that's concerned. They need someone that's interested. Many times when I take my clients who tell me they're dealing with stress, the first thing I will ask them, well, have you had any suicide ideations? That means, have you thought about suicide? Then when I ask them, have you thought about suicide? I ask them, have you thought about how you'll commit suicide? These are some important things. And this is something you may want to know because all these are important as to determine the degree, in most cases, how serious. Now, if someone says, you know, I thought about committing suicide and well, have you thought about how you would do it? No, I really haven't thought about how I'm going to do it. That does not mean that they're not committing suicide. That means that they have not invested in it totally. They may be at the early stages, but not to say that they can't go from 0 to 100 real quickly, but they're less likely. But if you ask a person, okay, have you thought about committing suicide? Say, yeah. Have you thought about how you're going to commit suicide? And then that carries it to a whole new level. If they say, you know what, yeah, if I'm committing suicide, you know, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And so that carries it to a whole new, but then you ask them, well, if they say, I'm going to take some pills, then you ask them, do you have the pills? Are they there with you? Then that carries a whole new level because they have the means and they have, you know, they have desire, the means, they have everything it takes to commit suicide. So they need help expeditiously. They need help right away. They need someone to just reach out to them and to talk to them. And the second myth, people who talk about suicide are just seeking attention. Now, you'd be surprised how many times I've heard that. I've heard people say, oh man, they're just seeking attention. Don't pay them no attention. Well, guess what? Many times when people are talking about it, they're not seeking attention. I mean, there are a lot of ways you can get attention rather than just saying, I want to commit suicide. God bless you, Pat. So praise Bishop and Mrs. Walton. God bless my friend Pat, call you my little sister. Been knowing Pat for a long time. People are just seeking attention, and some people feel that they say, "Oh, they're just seeking attention." Because I've seen situations where someone has repeatedly said, "I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to commit suicide," and so what happens? The person becomes desensitized because they've heard that person say it so many times. Oh, they just said that. Oh, they've said it 100 times. Each time the enemy is working with them. People don't just say, I want to commit suicide for no reason. Anybody say, I'm thinking about committing suicide, there's a problem. There's something going on. That's not something that people would play around with. Even if they're playing around, there's a possibility that subconsciously they're really thinking about it. People don't just toss that word around. There's something going on in their life that makes them feel that for some reason that they want to do that. So never take it for granted that this person is seeking attention. If they're seeking attention, why are they seeking attention? Maybe they're hurting. Maybe you're going through something. So don't just discard it as though they're just seeking attention. The fact about that is people who die from suicide have often, listen to this right here, have often told someone about not wanting to live anymore or they do not see the future. It's always important to take seriously anybody who talks about feeling suicidal. It's important to be kind and sensitive and ask direct questions such as, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Or do you have access, as I was saying, access to weapon things that can be used as a weapon to harm yourself? So if a person says yes to any of that, that means they have actually thought this thing out. So let's not just dismiss this. I'm saying this right here because this is, I don't want anybody on here to tell me, Dr. Walton, you know what? I just had a friend just the other day who had been coming to me, telling me they were contemplating suicide, and I didn't take them serious. Please, I'm begging you, if someone comes to you and tells you that they're convinced, I rather err and be wrong than make the mistake of not taking them seriously and find that they commit suicide. In fact, suicide is preventable but unpredictable. Most people who contemplate suicide often experience intense emotional pain, homelessness, and have a negative view of life or their future. Suicides are product of genes, mental health, illness, and environmental risk factors. Intervention targets to treat psychiatric and substance use illness could save lives. So now there's another component. Sometimes it's genetic. Sometimes people are dealing with chemical imbalances that cause them not to be able to function properly. It causes them to be unhappy, causes them to be depressed, causes them to be sad. And when a person is dealing with that right there, they may feel like the only thing they can do to get over that intense pain is to take their life. That's where you come in. You don't have to be an expert on suicide, but you can listen to that person. You can get information such as hopefully what we're sharing with you tonight that you can be of help. You don't have to be a specialist to help somebody who's going through suicide. The main thing you can do is just be concerned, listen to them, hear what they have to say. Now, there's a link that's on my Facebook page. If someone's on here and they want to come on live, feel free to click the link. Share your testimony. If you know something, been through experience of that, or been able to help someone, share with us. Pastor Emmy is working on them getting looser to do it. The enemy works on you day by day. And I want to say this here is that you'd be surprised at people who are contemplating suicide. And the sad thing about it is everybody who is contemplating suicide are not people that are homeless, people that are broke, people are poor. Sometimes people have a hard time dealing with life in general. I've dealt with people from Wall Street, professional individuals who get tired of the rat race, get tired of struggling, get tired of the competition in the business world, and they're just tired. And they said, and they see no other alternative but to commit suicide. So we want to get that out of our mind that we can just put a general label on who's going to commit suicide. There's no such thing as a general label who's going to commit suicide. Myth number 4. First, okay, it could be trauma, triggers, and generation problem. That's so true. One thing before I go to myth number 4, a lot of times when we see in a lot of high schools and elementary schools, one person may commit suicide, and that may trigger an event where other kids start committing suicide. That's why many times they are starting to have mental health counselors to address these situations. Mental health counselors in the school, when one child commits suicide, then they bring them in and say, talk about it, because there are people who, or you don't know who's on edge, especially young people. They're very emotional. When my friend commits suicide, life is not worth living. They don't have the coping skills that are needed to deal with. So they said, well, maybe I may, may decide to do the exact same thing. God bless Sister Rose. She said, hello, everyone. Not working for a change. Hope all is well. I'm glad to have you on. We miss you. But we have to realize that, especially in the school system, a lot of times And then too, sometimes young people commit suicide, and I hate to say it, in many of the affluent areas, they list their death as accidental death because if they list as suicide, then the parents or someone can't get insurance, or they don't want the stigma. So really, when you look at the numbers, even though they're staggering, they do not totally represent the total amount of people that are actually committing suicide. There are a lot of people committing suicide, and many of us have just thought to ourselves sometimes, boy, I just wish I didn't have to have no problems at all. And the devil will deal with all of us. All of us have thought about, man, I'm just tired of it, tired of life. But some think about it longer and more often. There are a number of pastors that have committed suicide, successful pastors. We have to realize that we're human and we have to understand how to manage the challenges in life that we're dealing with. Myth number 4, people who take their own lives are selfish, cowards, or weak. Fact. People do not die of suicide by choice. Often, people who die of suicide experience significant emotional pain and find it difficult to consider different views or even see a way out of their situation. Even though the reasons behind suicide are quite complex, frequently suicide is associated with psychiatric illnesses such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and substance use. Now, these are a lot of the leading causes, but you don't have to be psychotic. You don't have to deal with mental illness to just get tired, to just feel overwhelmed. There's times when you just feel overwhelmed. I'm just tired of it, you know. And the enemy will listen. If you listen to the enemy will have you to say, "Hey, I'm tired," And then sometimes people just feel like nobody cares about them. Young people deal with pastors. Young people deal with peer pressure, bullying as well. So true. Monitor your children, monitor your nieces, your nephew, your grandkids, your neighbor, your friend, children at church. I remember that I was at a church one time preaching a tent revival, and about 200 some people there, and the pastor asked me to pray for everyone, which I don't always do, but this particular time, God spoke to my heart and said, "This is what I want you to do." I prayed for every individual one by one. And I remember about 3 young kids came to me and God showed me what they were doing with. And I told the young man, I said, you're doing bullying at school. And he said, yes. I whispered in his ear and he talked to me, didn't talk into the mic, but I talked to him and I began to pray for him. And he was so sincere. And so when we talk about suicide, I'm glad you said it, Pat. When you're being bullied and you feel like you have nowhere to turn to, then that can be very difficult, especially a young person, because society says our ability, our emotional status, uh, we don't come to full maturity to about 22, 23. So under 22, 23, there's still that we're still dealing with our emotional ability to handle a certain situation in our lives. So we have to be monitor these young kids because um, there are a high number of young children, 9 years old to 11 years old, that are committing suicide. You wouldn't think this happening, and you may not always hear about, but they are. I In my church in Evansville, there was a young man that used to attend my church. Family went to another church. He was 10 years old and he hung himself. 10 years old. I'm thinking, what would make a 10-year-old want to commit suicide? Parents, you need to talk to your children. Have a sit down with those children. They may be smiling on the outside, but they may be say, hey, what's going on in your mind? How are things going to school? Maybe know who their friends are. So Sarah, God bless you. Thanks for watching. Say praise the Lord. Thanks for watching, Sister Sarah. Have a sit down talk with those kids. Tina, what's going on? How you doing? Most of the people I meet, even at restaurants, I say, how you doing today? You never know what people are dealing with. You just never know. And so just a kind word to let them know that somebody's concerned about them may make a world of difference. Makes a world of difference. Myth number 5, teenagers and college students are the most at risk for suicide. But the fact is, the suicide rate for this age is below the national average, and suicide risk increases with age. The age group with the highest suicide rate in the U.S. is men and women between 45 and 64. Though particular groups may be at higher risk, suicide is a problem among all ages. And so there are a larger amount of young kids committing suicide. However, there are older people. When you start getting older and you start slowing down and you don't feel as vibrant as you used to, you start having problems, start medical problems. When I work with a suicide crisis line, I never forget I had a gentleman, older gentleman, who wanted to commit suicide. And there's a moral factor too, because he wanted to commit suicide because he was running out of his insurance. His insurance was running out. He said, listen, if I kill myself, then my family won't use all the money. They have some money. I'm gonna die anyway. That's when you think about that, that's pretty serious. I mean, and I had there were therapists that said, hey, euthanasia is okay. It's okay to kill yourself. And so that's something we have to talk about too, because some people believe that. So we were taught in church coming up there was a sin to commit suicide, but now other people, there are people who will tell you, in the church that no, I don't see suicide, as being a sin. Let me know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts? Do you feel like it's a sin to commit suicide? Do you think you can commit suicide and go to heaven? I could I could do a whole program just on that alone. But that was a moral dilemma, because I realized what the gentleman was saying, that at the end of the day, he's going to die. And the longer he's sick, the more money is going to be expended trying to maintain his life. When at the end of the day, all his money is going to be gone, he's going to die anyway. And so that is a moral problem. It's a moral dilemma. Tell me what you think about that. I'm sure if you be honest, that if I were to be honest, I had mixed emotions about that. I really did. I like to say, hey, I no, I'm not going to tell anybody to commit suicide, but I did understand what he was saying. Okay, thanks, Sister Pastor. I strongly believe it's a sin to commit suicide. Thank you. Um, Pat Kelly, praise the Lord. Sister Rose, praise the Lord. Anybody else? Tell us what your thoughts are. I had a conversation just last week. Someone in ministry said they view it differently. They view it differently. But I want to give you a chance to tell us what your thoughts are. So when the reason why I brought up that example about the gentleman, because there are some situations that people are dealing with uh, that the enemy will make them think that that's the best thing to do, especially a person who's dealing with sickness or terminal illness. A lot of them are often tempted to commit suicide, especially when people are older at the end of their life. They feel like they're useless, and so we have to make people feel like they're important. Because if a person feels like they're useless and no one cares about them, what's going to happen next. The enemy's going to talk to them and say, "Well, nobody care. Who will the world be any different with you not on here?" That's what the devil tells people. If you're gone, it's going to make a difference. Let those people that are in your life know that they have value. Let them know that your life will not be the same with them not in it. Never make someone feel that you don't care if they're there or gone or anything. And that comes from that involves not being selfish. That involves being concerned about other people. Because sometimes we can be so wrapped up in ourselves that we don't have the time, take the time to focus on anybody else but ourselves. So we have to. I mean, this is Suicide Awareness Month. I wonder how many churches are put a poster, put a sign up, have a number, put the number for suicide 988 up if someone's committing suicide. Everyone can do their part to save a life. Do what you can do. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk anybody you see that's hurting, and anyone express to you that I'm just tired and I feel like giving up. Take the time to talk to them. Sister Rose says, so what about what Jim Jones did? Was that a sin, taking someone with you on your suicide venture? Yeah, that's a good question. The thing about it is that Jim Jones, not only did he take his life, but he forced so many people to take their life. And that's a serious situation right there, because it's like those people, many had no choice. Either they commit suicide or they would get shot. So that is, those are something we have to think about. But these are things we do have to have a dialogue about. You know, I could come in and tell you my opinion, my opinion may be right, may be wrong. But I do think I appreciate you sharing. That's a good question. But these are some of the topics that we need to discuss. We need to discuss those things there, because it's happening. It's happening not only with Jim Jones. There are other cults out there that are doing some of the exact same things, and people are wrapped up in these cults, and a lot of people right now are saying that if things don't change, they're willing to give their lives, they're willing to take their life no matter what. So I do think that I can't see any way of justifying with Jim Jones. That's my opinion. I can't see any way of justifying that at all. Let's see, Sister Howard. Greetings to Jesus. And I believe the state of the mind is deprived of hope. The individuals that falls into this mindset are not spiritual minded. Their minds believe the lies, whispers from the enemy. I believe we need to be more aware. Suicide is man's thought, not God's ever. Very good. Thanks for sharing that. So, and I'm going to ask you then, Sister Howard, what about preachers and saints that are committing suicide or talking about committing suicide? What category do we put them in? There may be someone here. See, and you're right. It's a trick of the enemy, but we have to be aware that we all can be susceptible to being deceived by the enemy. We all can get to a point in our life where I'm just tired. It's too much. Challenges in life, frustration, family, finances, a lot of these things can contribute to somebody say, "Oh, I'm just tired." See, some people say I'm just tired and they keep on moving, but some people say they're tired, and that's when the enemy creeps in and say, "Hey, you need to commit suicide." But I think we have to learn to do. We have to learn to be able to talk. We have to create an atmosphere, an environment where people can feel comfortable talking to you about anything. How many of us that you feel that your friends and your neighbors and those around you will feel comfortable talking to you without you judging them? What's wrong? You think about committing suicide? What's wrong with you? If you got that attitude, don't be surprised if nobody wants to come to you and talk to you. As a Bishop Jim Jones used to belong to Christ's temple. Well, bless his heart. I don't know if he belonged to it. I did hear that he actually preached revival there. I don't know if he belongs there. I don't want to identify with that, but it's kind of sad. So that means he knew about holiness. So if we're not careful, I don't care how spiritual you are, you can be deceived by the devil. Plain and simple, you can be deceived by the devil. Jim Jones, they say, it was a dynamic preacher. But the Bible said, little leaven the whole lump. Don't allow yourself to be deceived by the enemy. That's why you have to walk in the Spirit. The Bible says, if you walk in the Spirit, you won't fulfill the lust of flesh. So the person who is not spiritual minded is going to be tempted. So the person who's not saved, many times do not have the resource that the person who is a Christian has, the Spirit of God, who has the power to say no to the devil. Because we do have, I'm going to say this, right? Because you're a saint doesn't mean that you don't get frustrated, you don't get tired. The pastor, amen, so true. Don't mean you don't get tired, but you have the Spirit of God on the inside that can lead you and guide into all truth if you allow the Spirit. I'm gonna ask those of you on here, please share this right here. I think this is a very important subject. Please share it, share it with your friends, share it with your family, because uh, I'm telling you, there are a lot of people, and I'm sure there's someone in your circle that's probably contemplating suicide right now, and you're not even aware of it. You know, I was talking to someone. We have to follow the leading of our minds. How many times have I thought about calling somebody and didn't call them, and they're gone? Not because suicide. I'm just saying in general. This time last week, I was in Denver, Colorado. Last Saturday, I said a week ago, Saturday, I said I'll call Elder Sanford because he and I would talk maybe once or every 2 weeks or so. I said I'll give him a call when I get back. By the time I get back, get a chance to talk to him, he's gone. So when you feel a leading to reach out to someone, call that person. If God places somebody in your heart, call that person, reach out to them because you don't know what the person is going through. That's why oftentimes, thank you, Sister Pat, for sharing. Appreciate that. You know, if God places somebody on your mind, call them up, give them a text. Many times, a number of people know if I have your cell phone number, oftentimes I will send texts to different people at different times, let them know I'm thinking about you, let them know I'm praying for you. We all need encouragement sometimes. That's just a fact. So Howard, unfortunately, their focus is off of Jesus. I understand this type of hopelessness. As people of God, we must stay bound in the Lord. Elijah was a man of like passion. We'll be always under attack. We will have issues again, and we must be sensitive to the suicide stronghold. Very well put. And it's a stronghold. It's a stronghold, and we don't deal with it. Again, the myth is if we talk about it, then that's going to make people want to commit suicide. No, that's incorrect. Sister Rose says, so the question will be, is suicide sin or an illness? That's how you will determine if it's death sentence or just a quick decision to end the situation you're in. Okay, that's a very good way um, to look at it. I think you could look at it a number of ways. It could be a mental illness, uh, but by the same token, we have to do all we can to reach out to people because there are people who are suffering with mental illness, schizophrenia, different psychosis, and different things like that. But there are help for them. Even that person, there's medication. Even that person, there are resources. And so, what we have to do, Sister Rose, is we have to be diligent to reach out to those people because some people don't know uh, that they're going through things. Some people don't know that there's help. So all I can say, Sister Rosette, because it's very good comment. But all I've said, we have to do what we can to support those that we know that are struggling in our circles, in our family, in our neighborhood. Minister to them, encourage them, support them, because there are a lot of people who are dealing with medication, psychiatric drugs, but there's help for them. I deal with clients that are dealing with that, and there's help for them. So if we can in any way help them, connect them with the resources they need, then that's all we can do, and that's what we have to focus on. Because you're right, there are a lot of people have disease and things like that. But if we were to just say, that is a mental thing, then we can easily dismiss it when we don't have to dismiss it, when we can address it. Uh, Give them resources, refer them to 988, refer them to a therapy, refer them to a psychiatrist. I deal with a lot of clients who would tell me, hey, I'm talking about successful people. You know what? I've thought about committing suicide, but we have to give them some alternatives. Let them know there's help because many times the individuals who wants to commit suicide feel like there's no more resources, there's no more help, nobody can help me. I'm beyond help, and they need to understand that no, you're not beyond help. God can help you. And this is why I tell people that I remember when I first wanted to be a therapist, someone said, "Why you want to be a therapist? You know, people need to go to therapy." I said, "Well, there are those people who are willing to submit themselves to the Spirit of God, and that God can help them. But there's those who are not, or unwilling, or unable. They need prayer and they need some therapeutic help. Some people need both. They need prayer, therapeutic help, and medication. And I'm not against a person taking medication. I'm not against that. If you need something to regulate your mind, honey, do what you got to do. Don't listen. Don't let these corner folks tell you, honey, if I was you, wouldn't take this. Listen, you know yourself. You know what the battle you're dealing with in your mind, and if taking some drugs will help you, then honey, you may have to just take that. You know, it may be like a crutch. Or remember, these had those plastic casts on. They used to put cast on them, big old thick casts on your arms or your foot. I guess they change it now, but those casts were there for a temporary aid. Sometimes you may need make it. Doesn't mean you have to be on it all your life. God can deliver you. God can help you, but get the help that you need. Don't just stay and just accept the state of mind you're in. And you have to talk to yourself. Say, I'm not going to be in this state all the time. God can help me. And believe in God. Have faith in God that God can help you. And when you believe that you can be helped, then you're on your way to growing and coming out of that. But you have to understand and believe that you can be helped. So if it wasn't for the Lord and God's grace and mercy, where would we be? So true. So true. At some point, every one of us have gotten a thought in our mind, boy, I'm tired. I can't take another thing. I can't take this another minute. Whatever you're dealing with, we all have said this. But the difference, some of us have said literally, some of us said figuratively, and some say, hey, this is it. I took all I could take. I'm out of here. And so the factor is to recognize what's going on with you and recognize where you're at and recognize how bad it is. And you might have to, I've seen people say, you know what, I had to check myself into a place of mental health so I can get some help. Don't be afraid. Listen, I'm gonna tell you this right. People that love you want to see what's best for you. Listen, if you are here tomorrow that I check myself into a mental facility, hey, then you have to say, listen, those who love me say, I'm gonna pray for them. Those who love me don't love me say, I knew he was off anyway. But nevertheless, if I did, then the best thing I can do is not worry about what people say. Get the help that I need. I'm saying that because whoever's on here, if you're struggling, someone's struggling, you can't worry about what people think about you. Focus on yourself. Focus on self-care. Whatever it takes for you to get the help that you need, get it. And don't worry about what people think. And that's what I learned as a therapist, as working with other people. Get the help that you need. All right, Sister Rose said again, but God, you're right, but God. But God, a whole lot of folks will throw in the towel. Life can hit you hard. Especially, one of the challenges is financing, man. When people are broke, man, when you're struggling, it is rough. It's rough out there. When you don't have the resource. See, I found out money answers all matters. I've dealt with a number of clients who were suicidal. And what kept them going was the fact that I got Uncle Willie, Uncle Mike, Uncle Bob that can bail me out. My risk, I'm getting ready to get evicted out of my place, but they have someone who they can turn to that say, hey, I'm going to bail you out. They have a lifeline. But that person who said, I'm getting put out tomorrow, I ain't got nowhere to go, I have no hope, wintertime come, total different situation. So, sometimes we can't understand what a person's going through because we have resources, we have support systems. But if you don't have a strong support system, family, cousin, friend, nobody to talk to, you cut off from everybody else, you're an easy target for the devil to talk to you. That's why we need to stay connected. Some people are quick to disconnect themselves from folks. Line up with positive people. Don't get wrapped up with negative folks. Listen, There's some folks that, man, if you talk to them, you will become depressed. They depressed and they want you to be depressed. Be careful who you allow yourself to talk to, because they can. There's some folks that will affect your spirit. So Pat says, "Thank God I did when I lost my oldest son in 2003. I give God all the glory." Hey, thank you for sharing that with us, Sister Pat. That's very important. Appreciate that. And sometimes we need the honesty and transparency, because whatever you're going through, someone else is going through it and maybe going through it now, and they need to know that you make it, because sometimes people are like, oh, there's no way that anybody is able to go through what I'm going through and make it out. But they need to know that there are others that have gone through what you've gone through and have come out victoriously. True, we live in human bodies. I believe in deliverance. Mental disorders can lead to nervous breakdowns or crazy rampages and even suicide. I believe therapy is useful, and the ministry being able to air out and talk without fear of stigma is valuable. Don't let the enemy win. So true. And that's something that we have not embraced in most of our churches, because some of our churches still to this day, if you tell them, man, I'm kind of depressed, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy. You depressed? You say you're supposed to be depressed? Well, honey, I got news for you. We get depressed, man. Jeremiah was depressed. A lot of the prophets were depressed, but the longevity, how long? See, some people deal with short-term depression, and some people deal with long-term depression. And in other words, we can lose a loved one and it can affect us for a while, but there's some people they just can't shake it. Some people don't have the ability, and the longer you're depressed, then the longer the enemy works on you. And so there are a lot of things that can lead to it if you don't have the ability to shake it off, if you don't have somebody to talk to. So see, that's why I enjoy working with Suicide and Crisis Line. It's overwhelming. You're talking every week. I work from 6 to midnight. And I'm telling you, I heard some stories that will draw tears from young, old, rich, poor, you name it. And I had one gentleman told me this right here. He said, Mr. Walton, he said, you would feel awfully bad if you woke up in the morning and saw my name in the paper that I committed suicide. And you know what I told him? I said, no, I wouldn't. He said, wow, that's awfully cold. I said, no, I said, because I'm here for you. See, one of the things people do have to accept accountability for their own action. Don't ever let someone make you feel that you are the total cause of anything they do that they shouldn't do. People have to accept responsibility. I simply told him, I'm here for you. I'm giving my undivided attention. I'm willing to do all I can. But at the end of the day, I'm not responsible for your action. You are responsible for your action. See, sometimes people will try to make you feel like though you're responsible for the action. That way, they release themselves of any responsibility. Well, I'm committing suicide because nobody cares. No, you are committing suicide. It's a choice. It's a choice. And so what we need to do is let that person know that you do care and you genuinely care, because you have to realize too, the devil is going to misconstrue whatever thoughts they have and to ultimately make them think, hey, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares for what's used. But you can change that by letting people know that you care. Let those around you know that you care. I tell people all the time, I love you. I'm telling everybody on here, I love you, because the devil make you think nobody loves you. The devil make you feel like, why would somebody love you? Well, I love people that I know don't like me. A lot of folks don't like me. Don't mean that I have to just like them. I One of the greatest things that has happened in my life, I hadn't always been there. I've got to the point in my life right now, I have nothing against anybody. I can honestly, I love everybody. Does everybody treat me right? Will I spend time with everybody? No, because may not want to go out to dinner with you. Don't mean I don't love you. It means that you have to set your boundaries. And if someone in your life disrupts your peace and cause you to be depressed when you get finished talking to them, you have to set some boundaries. Don't let that man, that woman who's speaking negativity into your spirit have real estate in your mind. You got to be able to set those boundaries. When you see yourself and you know people that trigger you, you may have to cut them off. That's called self-care, self looking out for yourself. So, just don't let it happen. There, some people get joy in seeing you upset, and don't give them the privilege. Myth number 6: barriers to bridge safe firearms. Barriers to bridges, safe firearm storage, and other actions to reduce access to lethal methods of suicide don't work. Let me see before I answer this right here. This is Howard says. True, don't be manipulated. The enemy is using this person. God will lead and guide us and give us wisdom to deal with the issues of life. So Pat says, I'm having a hard time with the loss of my son Rico being depressed, but I'm coming out with prayer constantly and fasting. It will be a year next month. And you know what, Sister Pat? Um, that's a normal, you don't have to feel like what's wrong with me. Everyone deals with loss different. I think now, I think you are a member of Christ Temple church, if I'm not mistaken, if you're still a member of the church, and they are addressing that. So you may want to talk to someone or inbox me after this right here, and I'll share with you. Okay. But my prayers are go out to you. And I was at Rico's funeral, and I know that one of the things you can be confident knowing that you are very loving and supportive mom, and so you don't have any regrets or anything like that. Okay. Sister Rose says, last question. Don't have to be your last question. It's your turn now. So feel free to ask as many questions as you want. Last question. I might have missed some of your shows. So if you're already talked about this, apologize. But how do you feel about legal marijuana or the Delta 8 that people are using seem to help with depression and anxiety? Can these items help people mentally or make things worse? I don't think we have not directly Rose has said about that, but we can act we can I can always depend on you, Rose, to be creative in your questioning, and that's all right. uh that's a very good question. I have that discussion with a lot of different people. Matter of fact, I just had a discussion with someone last week because there are individuals said, well, marijuana is good for glaucoma, some of this codeine, some of the stuff that there are drugs. You know, I would just have to kind of think about that. I know before I was saved, I took marijuana as recreational drug, and I know me personally, I wouldn't feel right. I wouldn't feel right going back, taking marijuana. Plus, the stuff is so potent now. I don't know what's in that stuff, man. I mean, Rose around my age when we were coming up, you might have a joint that big, that about that long, and about tip of your finger uh, thickness, and man, we was high as a kite. And now they got these blunts. These jokers are this long and that thick. And I'm wondering how can a person smoke that without the brains being fried? So I wouldn't touch it. That's my answer. That's my answer. I wouldn't touch it. But that's a very fairly fair question to ask, Sis Rose. I'm not gonna say you all balance because you asked that question. It's a very good question to ask. So there are a lot of things that we don't understand, but it's just like the scripture, all things are lawful but not expedient. And so I have to realize, I have to find out what's expedient for me. And I have to know yourself, because sometimes we don't really know ourselves like, we think we do. The Bible says, little leaven the whole lump. If I start smoking a little bit of that, say I got glaucoma and I start smoking a little bit of that, I don't know where that's going to take me. So some stuff I don't do. People ask me, Bishop, do you drink? I don't drink. Do you say it's a sin to drink? I'm not gonna say it's a sin to drink, but I know one thing. Some stuff I deal with clients all the time that are alcoholics, man. I mean, telling the people, and they cannot go without drinking alcohol. I remember when I was in grad school, one professor shared with us his best friend was high in academia. He had, I mean, I don't know how many degrees, super intelligent, but could not stop the alcohol. And some studies have said sometimes first time you drink alcohol, you can become addicted to it. And so people say you can't become addicted. Yes, you can get it. It can chemically, it can affect you to the point that you feel like you can't do without. So I don't get into it because I got enough problems as it is that I don't need to get wrapped up in nothing else. So I don't allow myself to be tempted by something or to start something that I know that I can get caught up in. And that's what the whole gamut of things in my life. Some stuff, it may be look good to you, but it ain't good for you. A whole lot of things, and I say no. It's not that you're not tempted, but listen, a whole lot of stuff can be like Lay's potato chips. You can't just eat one. You get one, then two, then three, whatever your flesh tells you to do, wherever sounds good, you have to be careful. So, passage, yes. Let me see. This is Howard. Nowhere is it written where Jesus smoked marijuana. He was about salvation, deliverance, and healing. Jesus didn't get drunk or high. He is a healer of the heart. All right, very good. Thank you for sharing that, Sister Beverly. I'm with you. I haven't seen that and agree. Totally agree, Sister Pat said. Totally agree. And so, I think that you know where see Sister Pat, Sister Beverly in agreement. We have to realize there are a lot of people who have varying views on different things. And I do think it's important to have a dialogue about those views. We can't just totally dismiss what another person is thinking because, we got the Bible to come let us reason together. So sometimes we have to talk about these things because if people are thinking about it, then maybe they need to be addressed and we can get an understanding. But like I said, I've come to understand I'm not getting caught up in anything. I'm not going to start it because I don't know where it's going to take me. But like I said, the professor, his friend, ended up dying of cirrhosis of the liver because he had gotten as smart as he was, as intellectual as he was. He became overcome by what his addiction was. So anything you start, I don't care if it's drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever it is, you get caught up in that thing so much, it will carry you further than you ever want to go, keep you longer than you want to be. So that's why when it comes to a lot of those things, I say, no, thank you. I'll pass because sometimes we don't know ourselves. It's just like I remember when we were kids, when we were teenagers, getting an argument with somebody. And I used to see people trying to break up an argument. They try and be the peacemaker, and all of a sudden somebody says something wrong to them, hit them. Next thing you know, that person who was trying to break up the fight end up fighting because they had no idea what it took to tick them off. So you really don't know, uh, what's going to affect you. And so the devil wants to destroy us, and so we just have to be very careful and very prayerful of what we do, because then if you get caught up into it, and I tell people, it's like I deal with so many people. I don't do drug counseling like I used to. I used to be a drug therapist, but I had a lot of clients that all their main goal in life was to be like those of us that are on here that are not taking drugs. That's what they fought for. Not trying to be millionaires, just trying to be in a state of mind they can go through life without drugs. So I don't want to get caught up in any situation that's going to control me, that I'm going to spend the remainder of my life just trying to. I don't care what type of addiction it is. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be food, it could be sex, or whatever it is. You don't want to get so caught up in anything that you struggle on a daily basis just not to do it. And so that's what a lot of times people who are caught up in the drugs and various addiction, a lot of those are dealing with suicidal because they've gotten caught up with stuff that they can't handle. You don't know. Listen, you don't know what you can't handle. You just never know. Samson thought he could handle Delilah, and you see, next thing I know, Samson saying, Lord, give me one more chance. Let me die with the Philistines." You don't know. I don't care how strong you think you are. Some stuff you don't want. You don't want to mess with Pandora's box. I'm not going to do it. And better safe than sorry. So Myth number 6, we talk about barriers to bridges, safe firearms, storage, and other actions to reduce access to lethal method of suicides don't work. In fact, limiting access to lethal means such as firearms is one of the simplest strategies to decrease the chances of suicide. Many suicide attempts are result impulsive decisions. Therefore, separating someone from a lethal means could provide a person some time to think things going doing harm to themselves. I think that's something we all want to think about. Used to be a time we didn't have to worry about it, but I'm saying more Saints is packing. They carrying pistols. They got them in the car. They got them on them. The Saints is carrying guns, but they're saying limited access. Put your gun, lock it up, put it in a safe place, put it in a place where it's hard to get to. Well, that's you can ask yourself, do I want to put in a place hard to get to? If somebody comes to my house, I want to be able to get to it real quick. But things you can get to the quickest is the name of Jesus. You can pray, but you don't want to have easy access, because a lot of time people are considering suicide as a spare of the moment thing, and if they have the access there to have it, then they'll take. I've heard of people going to someone else's home and see their gun and shoot themselves. No way should somebody be able to come over to your house and have access to your gun. Keep it locked up. Don't give. The main things is called crimes of opportunity. In other words, like they wouldn't have been able to commit suicide with your gun if it wasn't available for them. Keep it out. Keep the gun out, please. Sister Sandra says, we do not know what we can handle until it confronts us. That's so true. Yes, guns everywhere. Saints got guns. Sister, wow. I'm running out of time. Wow, I didn't know it was past 9:00. I tell the story that you never know what you handle. I remember I was in court. Cellular One sued me for my cellular phone. That's when the cellular phone had a year contract. I was 1 week from my contract expiring, and they sued me for the entire year. That means I had to pay them for a whole new year. AT&T, whoever represents, said, "Don't worry about what take it." Well, I got sued. Me and another gentleman was at the court, and we were laughing. Everybody was talking about how people are panicking, how they just got all bent out of shape. And so next, it was the gentleman who I was talking. He went there, man. We were talking all cool, calm, collected. What we do? This guy fell apart, and we just talking about how everybody else falling apart. And so I said, "Well, I'm gonna go with them. I'm gonna be cool, calm, collected." But when that judge told me that I had to pay, I was 1 week from my contract ending, and because I canceled 1 week ahead of time, he told me I had to pay for a whole new year. I about lost. I said, "This don't make no sense." And then I found myself saying and doing what I thought would be cool and calm, but listen, until you confront it, you don't know what you're gonna do. So that's another reason. Don't mess with folks. So you don't know what folks are dealing with. Some folks as sweet as they can be, man. People deal with a lot of pressure. Lay his head in the wrong barbershop. Samson is a good example to remind us to stay out of the devil's arena. So we have to be careful. Well, this went on longer than what I thought. But I still didn't get to talk about some of the other areas. But please share this. I'm encouraging you to share with us, because again, we don't know who's in our life, who's going to who's considering committing suicide, and you can help someone by encouraging, being there. You can help someone by encouraging them. Let them know that you are concerned about them. Notice the signs of suicide. Some signs are noticeable, but some signs you may not know. A person can be cool and calm and collective, but you don't know what they're going through. So don't be afraid. One thing, do not be afraid to ask someone. And sometimes we know that people going through things, regardless of how they act. We know that they're going through a whole lot. Ask them, how are things going? And have you thought about suicide? All they can do is say yes or no. I'm not going to get offended. I'm not going to get offended if someone asks me. You can ask me, Bishop, have you thought about committing suicide? I'm not going to be offended. I would say, I appreciate you being concerned enough to ask for me. Most people are going to be concerned. They're not going to be offended. But listen, I'd rather a person be offended, me asking to be offended, than me not asking the person, the man, the woman, commit suicide. because that person asking is asking out of concern, and most people are able to recognize that you're concerned about them. Sister Beverly says, "Great ministry. Thank you, Sister Beverly." Sister Pat says, "Thank you, big brother. Very informative. Love the topic for tonight." Listen, we love y'all. God bless you. We're working on sickle cell because this is Sickle Cell Awareness Month as well. There's a lot of information out there on sickle cell. There's a lot of people that are dealing with sickle cell. We were supposed to have done this last week, but unfortunately, one of the person who was supposed to be on the program, they have flare up with sickle cell. And so we want to pray for them. There are so many things that people are dealing with on a regular basis that we don't know about, we're not aware of. And what I try to do each week is to bring awareness to it so we can be a blessing to reach out to those persons and help them. So listen, I love you. God bless you. Be safe out there. Be prayerful. Don't forget to share, tell others. We'll see you next week on next week's episode of Is